Hey everybody, what's up? Welcome to a new episode of Bellwethers Podcast. We're so excited to be here, and today we have one of the best people that we know, one of our best friends, I would say, closest friend. This guy is the most dependable guy, if you ask me, in all of Dallas, and it's none other than Pastor Steve John. This guy is all over the place. He's a worship leader. He's a backup singer. He's a pastor. He's an entrepreneur.
Backup singer? Why'd you say it like that?
I mean, come on, bro. I was just saying, backup vocalist, okay? I was like, and pastor, entrepreneur, real estate, commercial real estate agent. I don't know. Co-founder of Youth Pastor Conference.
Yeah.
Did I miss anything? Or everything is good? Yeah, that's a lot of
God,
stuff. Yeah. Okay, that's sick stuff. And also, he's one of our board of advisors here at Bellwethers. We are so excited to have him on the podcast. Pastor Steve John, welcome. It's an honor to have you here.
Well, thank you for having me. Excited to be here with you guys and looking forward to it.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a while, but yeah, still how do you do all 6 or 7 of these things in your life,
Yeah, so there's things called rhythms of life, right? Instead of trying to balance everything, I feel like when we talk about balancing, it's like balancing different plates and you're just waiting for one of them to fall. But sometimes in seasons of life, there's rhythms where, hey, right now, we just finished our youth pastor conference, for example. We can put down the back burner just for a few months and I can focus on other things right now. So I think God gives you grace to kind of take care of everything in the rhythms of life.
I think there's a special grace only you have, or selective people have. But yeah, I mean, I really want to know, how do you actually manage all 6 of these things?
Yeah.
Like, how is there like a priority matrix, or is there something like that you've set up, or a delegation? Plus, also you're a father, you're a husband, you're a father of 2, and you live in Forney, so any of the meetings you go is actually in Dallas. So how do you even manage the drive time too?
Sure. So great question. I think okay, let's just get right into it.
Let's do it.
And so I think I was serving on staff at a church, at American Church, for about 14 years. And 7 of those years, I was a youth pastor. And I inherited like 9 students. And by the time I stepped off of staff, we had over 300 students. And although the ministry was exploding and it was growing and God was moving, if I can be real with you guys today, my marriage was like very shaky ground. And my wife came up to me and she said, I feel like you're more married to ministry than you are to me. And so you talk about a wake-up call, right? And I was like, okay, God, what does that mean? What does that look like? And so we started seeking God together. And God gave me the release. And I felt in 2018, he said, hey, I want you to step down from the local church to equip the capital C global church. And so that's when I started the youth pastor, what's known as the Youth Pastor Conference now. I started this virtual conference in my spare bedroom, and I was just calling a couple of my friends to speak. And I was like, okay, God, like I feel like you're calling me to this. So it's just me, a word from God, and my credit card, right? No church or organization was financially backing me. I was like, okay, God, I'm just going to jump into it and just see what you do with it. And so, mind you, I did tell my wife, like, I'm stepping from a stable paycheck now into the unknown. What does that look like? But for her priority was, we're going to trust God, number 1. But also number 2 is this is going to be a season for us to really strengthen our marriage together, right? And I'm a firm believer of, if you are not ministering to your family first, then your ministry in the pulpit or on the stage is worthless.
Yes.
Come on.
There's no need. So right. There's no need to preach or do anything else if my family back at home is going to hell, honestly. Or if it's if I'm not prioritizing them.
Right.
So all that to say is, in this season of being an entrepreneur and doing all the other things that you were saying, I've learned, hey, when it's my time, like when Blessy comes home from work, I want to make sure that I am focused in on her, right? I want to make sure that my phone's put away. Ethan's at an age, he's 3.5, almost turning 4. And he's like, hey, daddy, come play with me. And so I'm like, hey, I want to make sure that he understands that ministry is not robbing him from his dad, but he understands that his dad is present with him and really ministering him during, whether it's playing Paw Patrol or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
So it's in those rhythms of seasons of life, I feel like anybody can learn. It's not just about priority. It's just about, okay, what is this season calling me for, right? And so a lot of times I have to put the entrepreneur hat, just grind a little harder. So I'll warn my wife, hey, I'm going to lock myself up in my office for a few hours. But as soon as I get out, I want to spend time with you. Now, we have a 2-month-old now.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, I'm going to help you with the baby.
Right.
And so, like, to be honest with you, it's like I'm beyond exhausted with waking up every 3 hours. But I want to make sure my wife is taken care of. She feels valued. And like even today when I get home, I told her, I want you to go do a me day. I want you to get your nails done. I want you to go get pampered. Like I'll take care of the kids when I get home, you know? And so finding those times of rhythm will make all the world of a difference in your whole life.
I think that's so specific what you said, like, serving your family first.
Yeah.
I think that's like very important too. I think today in the busyness of the world and in multiple priorities that happen around us in ministry, I mean, not just in ministry or any form of ministry or any form of job or entrepreneurship, I think we lose focus. We focus on the profit rather than about the family.
Exactly.
And I think that's a very dangerous thing, because the moment that you do that, I don't have a family, but still, I'm like, I mean, I'm not married. That's what I meant.
Yeah.
But yeah.
One day.
Okay, we're not. Okay.
Send in your applications.
Oh my god.
At Bellwethers.
Yes.
Okay, okay, we're cutting this. Okay, we're making sure this is not getting on the live stream. But yeah, but that like prioritizing your family over everything.
Yeah.
So how were you able to navigate through that season? You know, how do you feel like that was for you? How did it affect you? And how did you make sure, like, you know, how did you balance from there to balancing your ministry, your entrepreneurship, your pastor gigs, all your Instagram stuff, all of it? How were you able to do that?
God forced me to sit down.
Wow, man, come on.
So like my mode, like the way I'm wired, I'm like, I'm going to go at 1,000,000 miles an hour. And like for those that want to jump on the train, y'all can join me. If not, like I'm going to go full throttle with whatever I'm passionate about or whatever I feel like God's calling me to.
Yeah.
And so just a little bit more of a timeline. So in 2018, March, we buy a brand new house. We sign a 30-year mortgage, right?
Yeah.
And so April, literally 1 month later, I feel God saying, are you married to your comfort or are you willing to pursue my calling? And so I'm like, God, don't ask that question, because you're going to force me to choose.
Yeah.
Honestly, right?
Right.
And so I was like, God, whatever your calling is for my life, I want to pursue that. I never want to be on my deathbed and regret what if I never pursued you, or what if I never let go of my comfort zone. And so he said, okay, then prove it, right? I want you to step down from the local church, like I said, and equip the global church. And so I had a very honest conversation with my lead pastor, and I said, I want you to pray about this with me. I want you to seek the Lord with me, and I want to make sure that this is not just an emotional thing. And so he prayed about it, and like 2 days later, he called me and said, Steve, I was on a walk, in my prayer walk, and the Holy Spirit just convicted me to let you go and just pursue God. And so I stayed on for a few more months just to train up another guy, and then October of 2018, I officially was off staff and I was able to be at home. Okay. So then 2019 comes. I'm still trying to figure out my purpose. Think about that.
Wow.
Because my purpose was tied to my job title.
Yeah.
And now when you're not on staff anywhere, it really forces you to think, okay, my identity was wrapped up in my job title rather than who God's called me to be.
Also at the same time, I feel like you built so much there too that you feel such an attachment to it. A fear of like letting something that you've almost in a sense like helped build and help form, you had to kind of let that go.
Yeah, because you have to also think, like, when I started attending the church, we had less than 20 people.
Yeah.
By the time I stepped off as staff, we had over 1,200, 2 campuses. It was thriving and growing.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times when people leave staff, it's because, they're in a huge fight, argument, or whatever. This was complete opposite. Everything was like, thriving. I'm like, God, why are you telling me to leave now? You know?
Right.
And it was like one of those things, like really trusting him. Like, hey, although things are going well, do you trust me to pull you through the other side?
Yeah.
And so then in 2019, because God forced me to sit down, I was literally at home, like twiddling my thumbs, and my wife just reminded me, be still and know that he is God. And so in that moment, in that 2019 moment, I was able to build the infrastructure for our conference, build up a lot of relationships. And then, like I said, I started the conference. We had 1,100 people from 7 different countries show up. It was just unreal.
Yeah.
But little did I know that 2020 would come around and the whole world was shut down. But God forced me to be in a season of preparation before the shutdown happened in 2020.
Yeah.
And so then now, seeing hindsight, I'm like,
oh man,
God
was orchestrating
Oh
something.
my goodness. Like, I was like, God, I thank you for slowing me down. Because if I never listened to you and I was forced to sit down during the shutdown, I would have lost my mind. Right?
Yeah.
But because God was already preparing me a year before, like before virtual conference was sexy, before all these online things were the cool thing, God forced me to start something from the ground up and build it. And now it's kind of evolved into what it is now.
It's just crazy. And I think by the time this episode will be out, you guys, I think it's around, this will be released around March mid. So by the time we'll be very close to when your conference is happening. And we're excited. I mean, it's crazy how God has used you. And, from a position from 2018, to be honest, like, you are a great inspiration for us from the South Asian community. And the secret sauce to all of it is just obedience.
Absolutely.
And that's the craziest part, because I feel like as we have a progressive lifestyle, or we have like a set system, like, a 9-to-5 job, a church, and a car, like 2 kids or family, I think we're just like, we get so complacent to change. We just don't want to do that. And when God calls us to get out of it, we really don't want to. We just want to stay in there.
Yeah.
But a lot can happen with that one word called obedience, when you just like give in to God and say, Lord, I don't know what's going to happen, but I just trust you.
Whatever you're willing to hold on to and not let go of when God tells you to reveals the idols in your life. When God tells you something and gives you a command, he's not asking for your opinion. He's asking for your obedience.
Come on.
Right? And so I feel like you said, a lot of times so many people are stuck in their security, right?
Yeah.
Oh, how can I let this go?
Good.
What would the world look like if I let this go? Well, that's revealing your heart.
Yeah.
That reveals your source of security, or wherever you feel like you have a control of. But unless we let go of control and let God take control, that's where really things can blow up. And
I think a lot of times, like, people are also afraid of public perception too. Like, they're like, I'm taking this risk, and even though it's obedience act that God is telling us, like, I'm pretty sure for you too, like, 100%. Leaving a secure job, people are like, Steve doesn't have a job. Like, what is? I'm pretty sure you're probably getting pressure from your parents. All around the community is telling you, like, hey, this is not what you're supposed to do, but you're still following the voice of God. So, like, in many ways, how did you, like, personally, like, overcome these, like, fears, these doubts, and what people are saying, and it's a lot of times it's easier said than done than when you're actually in the midst of the fire,
Yeah. I had to, like, really remind myself of, number one, the God that I serve. He'll call people out of their comfort zones. And people would get ridiculed, right? And so I'm like, okay, you know what? If David was willing to get ridiculed on the battlefield, who are you to come with your stone and sling when I come with the spear? If he's willing to be ridiculed by his biggest giant, but because he had previous experience of, if God is able to help me deliver my sheep from the lion and the bear, surely he'll help me deliver my people from you uncircumcised Philistines. So because of my experiences in 2019, now I have more boldness to be like, I really don't care what other people think, because if God has brought me through in 2019, and in 2020, I didn't even share this part, but in 2020 was our most prosperous year when I started my company. When everybody else was like worried about their jobs or losing job stability, like, that's when God really showed up in my life and, like, allowed us to just go through the roof. And so that's why it's like, okay, God, you were faithful back in 2019 when I didn't know what I was doing, and now I don't care what people think. People can judge me at the end of the day, but they're not going to be at the judgment seat. You are. You're going to say, well done, my good and faithful servant. Faithful in the security, or faithful in the unknown, right? Good, well done, my good and faithful servant. So that's the reason my boldness is there. I really don't care what people.
It's an encouragement to so many people that are watching, man, because I know that people are probably watching right now are contemplating a decision in their life as we speak right now. And to know that like you trusted the Lord and you knew he was going to help you come through, and he's faithful. That's the encouragement enough for people who are wanting to take that risk. And you would say it probably, like you were saying, it paid off for you, right? Like God has come through in many ways for you now in the season that you are right now. So how's this season of ministry been for you right now?
Unreal. Like it's just like, you know, I was sharing with you guys some of the people that we're even talking to for this conference. If you would have told me that 5 years ago, I'd be like, bro, there's no way. There's no way I would have been able to even be on the same conversation or at least have their emails, right? It's just now, it's just like God is just opening up so many more doors. And so, you know, I'll say this. My pastor, Pastor Keith Kraft from Elevate Life in Frisco, he says, you cannot expect God to do exceedingly and abundantly if you yourself won't go exceedingly and abundantly in whatever aspect of it is. So in obedience, I'm going to go exceedingly. Even if it doesn't look like I know what I'm doing, at least I'm going to go in all the way knowing that you have my back. And so that's why I believe that God's opening up some huge doors now. And I can say so confidently because like, hey, with every valley, there is a mountaintop, right? And so I'm excited.
We were just talking about that.
We're just talking about
really?
Like, you know, mountaintops inspire leaders, but valley lows mature them.
1,000,000%. It produces fruit. You don't find farms. You don't find farms on the mountaintops. You find farms in the valley. Why? Because it produces fruit. It produces harvest. And so God is wanting to teach you and produce some things out of you in the valley, so that way when you go to the mountain, you are prepared for whatever He has for you in store.
And to echo off what you just said, like, you know, about the transition from valley lows to all the way to mountaintops. I want to use the example of Apple. Apple is one of the most innovative companies that is there in the world today. In the 70s and 80s, when Steve Jobs started off, it was in his garage where he didn't have a big tech machinery to set up the Macs. You know, it wasn't even called the Macs then. He had to do it hand by hand with a team of people that he knew, Steve Wozniak and his other partners and their girlfriends and their wives, their families. That's how they actually built that company. And nobody actually saw that process unless Apple made the big market entry and then it hit off. Till then, at that point, everybody's like, okay, Apple's at the top. But actually, they never saw the process, what happened in the garage that actually got them to the New York IPO, you know, into the stock exchanges. So I always feel like there's always a journey there. And I feel like the journey is often underrated. And the process is often underrated. People I think especially in our generation where we actually get everything so fast, like Amazon, I can order stuff and it can be delivered tonight. And we come like from 2-day delivery to same day delivery and same evening delivery. So and if you order through Uber Eats, like you can get it like within less than an hour or maybe less than 20 minutes. So we've come to that spot where we are so complacent that we can get everything so fast, and we just believe that the same thing works in life, the same thing works in ministry, the same thing works in the creative field, the business. But that's always wrong. I mean, you start a business, you can't make $1 billion by the next day. You know, there's always the process, and I feel especially the process has been underrated in the season. Or I think almost every individual, I think we actually see that the process is an underrated thing. Even Jesus had to wait 30 years for 3.5 years of ministry. And the logic behind that is still crazy, because from an earthly perspective, why would you want to work 30 years for something you can do in 3.5 years? But that process, the testing, the temptations that he all went through, and the process that he had to undergo actually enabled him to do it more powerfully for 3.5 years. And I think that's the part that people miss out. And we, in a world where everything is instant, I think, you know, we fail to see that. And especially like you said, like when God calls you into ministry, the moment you God calls you into ministry, the next you actually don't get the stage the next day. You know, you don't get to go to Elevation or Life Church and then able to be our passion and be able to preach. No, there's always a process, a time frame. And also, I'm reminded by one of the quotes. I don't know who said it. It's like, expect great things from God, but also attempt great things for God. I feel like always, like especially in ministry or especially in the creative field, we expect God to bring me $1 million client. I really pray that in all my businesses. I'm like, God, just bring me $1 million client. It'll be so cool, you know. But also that, am I ready to attempt great things for God? The expectation is there, but the attempting has to be there. And what happens, almost every Christian, I think, you know, I would say 90%, 95% of Christians, we are already we are systemically wired to expect things and not attempt things, and that attempting things is actually stepping out in faith. And what you said, like, you know, and to one more point that you actually said, that I really love that, like the what if, you know, and I always feel what if works both ways. Yeah, what if it doesn't work out? That's definitely there. But what if it works out?
Amen.
You know, and like, and what you said, that's a real. I always tell this to myself and people around me, that I don't want to be at my deathbed and think that, okay, what if this worked out, or what if I had done things differently? I mean, even if I fail, I fail. At least I don't live in the regret of it. You know, you don't want to live in regret for the rest of your life. You at least tried something, and I think there's always a difference, and that what if works both ways.
Yeah,
I think one thing, we have to stop painting valleys in a negative light. Like, our perspective has to change when it comes to that, because I think there is enjoyable moments in a valley. Like, you know,
100%, yes.
I saw this beautiful picture. And anytime now, like, this comes with maturity, right? As you get older, because we glorify the mountaintop so much.
Yeah.
But I feel like, you know, there's so many beautiful moments with God when you're in the valley.
Yeah.
I was like, can you just take a moment and just appreciate the flowers, or the trees, you know, or the grass that's there, you know? It's like, we are so, like you said, we're so quick to move on to the next thing that we can't even appreciate the mountain itself. Because like, even a mountaintop experience doesn't even last that long either.
Right.
You just look at the view and then right back down, which the valley takes even longer. But I enjoy the journey now, like moments like this where we can just be a part of each other's lives and know more about each other, grow together, and to experience little things that you won't really get to experience if you don't really go through that valley, right? And you learn a lot through it, right? Patience builds character and endurance, you know, and all these things that come with it. It brings perseverance. So, and you're a testament of that, Pastor Steve, seriously.
Thanks,
and
man.
You're encouraging a lot of people to see how you stepped out in faith, you know? I just want to say, I mean, one thing in this thing that we're talking, what is something that you can say to our audience as they're listening, just to encourage them as they're maybe in a similar season like this?
Yeah, I would say radical obedience is the best type of obedience.
There we go.
You know,
You heard it.
I would say, you know, radical obedience is the best type of obedience, because partial obedience is disobedience.
Wow. Okay.
You know, I don't want to go I don't want to go halfway with God. I want to give God 100% of everything that I have.
Yes.
And in return, God will bless me for my efforts. Because like you said, what if we fail? I would every day, I would rather fail with God on my side than fail on my own.
Yep.
Because knowing that God is able to work all things out for our good. So when you're failing with God, nothing is wasted.
Yep.
With God, God is able to use your failures as stepping stones or stepping blocks to whatever the next thing is He has in store for you. Right. So when you really think about it, there's no such thing as failure with God. Yeah. There are lessons to be learned with God. You know what I'm saying? Because honestly, how can you fail with God? And so, yeah, that's my encouragement, man.
Wow. Well, I want to transition the conversation a little bit. And so you are in marketing. Is your background marketing, by the way?
Yes. I have a major in graphic design and then a minor in marketing.
Okay. So I also come from a marketing background. And I've been learning what social media sort of looks like for the church world. Yeah. And sometimes people can say, you know, social media is negative and is a positive to church. So I want to ask you some questions, like how can we help churches navigate this world of social media, the dangers, the positives that come from social media? What are some tips that you have for people that are out there?
Perfect. I believe, and I work exclusively with churches now, consulting them, helping them with their digital presence, and helping turn those online viewers into in-person visitors. Okay. And so one of those things is increasing their online awareness, right? So Jesus has given us something called the Great Commission. Right. Go into all the world, right? Preaching the good news and creating disciples. But we have to understand that the modern day mission field is digital, right? And if we are not willing to go digitally first and expand our reach digitally, we're really telling God no instead of go, right? And so I believe that with social media, pastors have so much that God has revealed to them, and every Sunday they're spending a lot of time to preach the word throughout the week. They're preparing the word, right? And so I'm a firm believer, because I preach as well, right? I'm a firm believer of, if God reveals a word to you, I don't believe it's just good enough for you to record it on Sunday and just have it sitting on your YouTube channel, never to be seen again. I do believe that there's ways we can repurpose the content that God's given you and you preach on Sundays and really minister to people that are searching for hope online, right? So I tell churches this example all the time. So for example, Google gives $10,000 for free in something called a Google ad grant for nonprofits. So that's $120,000 per year of free advertising on Google. Most churches are not aware, nor do they.
This is my first time hearing about this too.
So they're not aware, or nor do they know how to utilize that amount of $10,000 per month, right? And so one thing that I say is, okay, for example, we're in February right now as the time of this recording. So a lot of churches are speaking about love, relationships, marriage, whatever the case may be. Perfect. So let's take your sermons about marriage, about love, about family. Let's build a landing page, right? And let's take your transcripts from a Sunday, turn that into a 5-day devotional. So that way on the landing page, someone can sign up for a 5-day devotional. So now here's where it gets better. We take that landing page and advertise that on Google, so that if someone types up divorce attorney in Lewisville, Texas, your church is going to immediately pop up, and the headline's going to read, struggling in your marriage? Try these resources before throwing in the towel. Now you are ministering to people in their time of need with what they are actively looking at, what they're actively looking for. They're looking for divorce attorneys, but imagine if God can use what God has given you in February and minister to someone in July that's looking for a divorce attorney, right? And so these are things that I want really the church to understand, that we necessarily don't have to fly all the time to go to a third world country. We can spread the gospel by taking what God has given us and utilizing the most effective way on social media and using the right tools to minister the gospel everywhere. And so I believe that your location is not a limitation to God's impact in your community, and even the size of your church. I'm working with a church right now that they have about 200, 300 people, and this month alone, I just got the analytics this morning, their reach was over 30,000 people.
Wow, that's gold.
So you're talking about over 100x times of their size of their church. They're reaching out to so many people around the world. Why? Because it's content strategy. We're taking what God has given you and putting little clips and things on TikTok or Instagram or Facebook. Now someone says, man, I'm really inspired by a 30-second clip. Let me see if I can find the whole message. Boom. Now people are searching and watching, getting plugged in, be like, whoa, I relate with this pastor. I enjoy the messages that he's given. I want to come visit on a Sunday and check it out.
Well, so I think one thing I always wondered, what if people are not getting the same experience as your online presence or your social media presence as they would get at a live experience?
I think there's creative ways. Okay. So for example, if you don't have the best live stream, setup for the church, don't be overwhelmed with that. There is power in just taking your phone and going live on Instagram, maybe on Sunday night or maybe on Monday morning. Just talk about Sunday recap. And as a pastor, you're just sharing your heart. Hey, yesterday I spoke about this, that, and the other. Here's some things. And now people, from the comfort of their own homes, they're able to comment. Because now what TikTok has shown us is there is power in the real and the raw. Overproduced, commercialized content is not converting as well on TikTok as an influencer that says, hey, I just got this protein powder in the mail. I'm going to check it out. And people are interested. People are invested in seeing the results for that, right? So same thing with this. People are not impressed by how fancy your stage design may be as they used to be maybe 10 years ago. They're like, okay, can you provide something that I can apply in my everyday life and be able to grow my family or help me in my situation where I find myself in?
Right. And I also think like people always think social media is just a tool, but I feel like it's more of a ministry place. It's a space where you can actually produce ministry content.
Yeah.
And people think that, okay, I wanna increase my follower reach. Okay, I wanna be like Stephen Furtick. I wanna be like Life Church. And I think there's nothing wrong in thinking like that, but the way that you should approach it is like it's a platform, and it's also a ministry space, just like any other physical space. I think that's being missed out. And one of the best examples I've seen is Life Church. Life Church, the way that they set up their online campus, I think it was like when Pastor Alan George was there.
Yep.
It was really amazing. That was like an experience for people who see it, and it didn't feel like just live streaming. It was like somebody was actually talking to them. It was actually catering to a specific audience in the online in the online world. And also really, and one of the things that Life Church, I really love Life Church, Pastor Craig and the team, because the way that they think is actually amazing, because they are one of the first people to actually launch into the metaverse.
Yep.
That was like, I think
last year.
Was that?
I would not say that's a game changer.
Yeah.
That was a game changer. Yes, because at that time nobody knew the metaverse.
Yeah.
Only real estate people were using metaverses, and all the high tech companies were coming up. VR, Meta, and other people like that. But then all of a sudden, Life Church enters into the space and starts making a difference, where you can sit in the metaverse with your Meta Quest or whatever your VR goggles on, and still experience a service in the same way that you actually experience. Maybe not 100% the physical experience, but that was a game changer. And I think that's what's missing. Where we actually don't think outside of the box. We just limit, okay, this is what we can do, or this is what we know. We just don't want to take effort into the research and think outside of the box, spread our wings, and see what we can do. And I think always one of the greatest models I see is also the corporate world. And I'm not asking the church, everybody to take inspiration from the corporate world, so don't get me wrong. But I'm saying like the corporate world plugs in millions of dollars into marketing. Like millions and billions of dollars into marketing. You open Google, you open Instagram, Facebook, you see all these ads coming. The way that they market it is using social media as a place to promote their products. But what the church can do is using it as a ministry place and changing the whole perspective about it. And then anybody who opens up sees a reel, where probably in this reel the pastor is talking about divorce, or pastor is talking about addiction or mental health, and probably the person is actually who is watching it is struggling with any of it. They actually feel like this person is speaking to me. And that is how you change the game. And I think that's how you set up a standard in a world that is ruled by corporation giants and billions of dollars. I think more user specific and more user oriented, straight towards the user when you get there. I think that's what's going to change the game.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, sometimes I think I struggle, and I want to go a little bit deeper when it comes to social media, because this idea of like using social media for clout purposes, like we talk about, we're gonna only put our highlight reels, we're gonna make even our personal Instagrams become like this, and then now we also we do that with church too, and I've heard from people who say, hey, I've come to church, but I don't have that same experience. Like, people are not as friendly. The pastor, like, he goes straight to his green room after he's done with this message. And so someone who does media and marketing at my own church, coming from a marketing background, you're taught a lot of times to sell a product. And I know we're selling a product, but if we're going deeper, we're actually trying to build deeper relationships with people, like, I don't like, and so maybe you can unpack this, Pastor Steve, in your sense, but I really do struggle, if I'm being honest, with this idea that I'm trying to sell something on Instagram or social media, but if people don't have the same experience, I'd rather not waste my time and energy and put that back into building meaningful relationships and doing one-on-ones and building a community around me. But it's also really hard to say because everything is moving towards social media, TikTok and stuff. So maybe you can also help the audience too, to like, hey, if you're in the same place, like what do I do?
Yeah. So I think the culture and the landscape of church is changing finally, because 5-10 years ago, church was all consumer centric, right? Hey, let's consume, let's be entertained, and then I can go back and do the same thing that I've been doing Monday through Saturday. Now, I think the American church has finally woken up and realized, because if you visit like third world countries like India or countries in Africa, you'll see that people are so hungry for the word of God, and yet they don't have all the fancy equipment or all these things. Why? because they value discipleship. They value really the community of the body of Christ. And so when you said, if they're not experiencing what they see online rather than in person, that all rises and falls on the vision of the house. What kind of vision is the pastor casting? Okay, are we called to be an entertaining church, or are we called to be a disciple-making church?
Come on, that's...
Because what we're doing online is building relationships.
Yes.
And if we can extend that from an online relationship into an in-person gathering, then now you've bridged the gap, right?
Wow.
And so a lot of times what I teach the churches that I consult is they can see you online, but if they have a horrible experience in person, it defeats the whole purpose. So what we need to do is, okay, we need to imagine ourselves as a first-time visitor. I've never been to your church before. Maybe I don't even know Jesus, right? But I'm willing to try you out. I'm willing to, instead of going golfing or doing whatever on a Sunday morning, I'm going to go visit you, right? So as soon as your tires hit the parking lot, what does that experience look like for a first-time visitor? So I walk them through something called Plan Your Visit. And so basically Plan Your Visit is, hey, we're going to have a parking lot team that greets you in the parking lot. And so we'll have greeters that says, hey, if you're a visitor, turn on your emergency lights. So as soon as someone hits their emergency lights and their hazards on, the whole parking lot team knows this is a brand new person.
Yeah, got to take care of them.
And we got to take care of them. Now we have designated parking in the front of the church, so that way they're not walking from all the way in the back to the front. And so now that they're parked towards the front, guess what? My host is looking for people that are parking in that designated area. My host is going to walk up to them and greet them as they come out of the door. But because they planned their visit online, maybe they said, hey, I want to visit you this Sunday. Here's my name. Here's the car that I drive. Here's my kids' names. And I'm going into a lot more detail, but
this is good.
Okay. Yeah. So because they filled that out online, now the host is saying, okay, I remember the Smith family saying that they drive a red Honda, and also their kids' names are Joe and Jill. Okay, so there's a red Honda that's parked right here. This may be the Smith family. So as the host comes, says, are you by chance the Smith family? Now the first impression has gone through the roof.
Yes.
Now I'm more than just a number. I'm actually a valued person.
Yeah,
now,
I'm
right?
seen.
I am seen.
Now.
That's a great. That's a great thing you said. I'm seen now, and now you can say this must be your kids, Joe and Jill. Oh my gosh! Now as a parent, oh my gosh! Now you're valuing my kids. Ooh. And not only that, my children's director had seen that this person had planned their visit throughout the week, and they already inputted that Joe and Jill's information into Planning Center at the kids' church. Right. So now they're not waiting in a long line to check in.
Yeah.
Their information is already there. A streamlined event, right? And so now the host is saying, hey, we're so excited that you're here. If there's any questions, please let us know. In fact, do you mind if I give you a tour of our facility? I'd love to show you around. You're going out of your way to give them a first class experience because a lot of people don't know what to expect out of the church. And like you said, a lot of people has given a bad taste of what church is. And they associate church with, if church is this bad, then God must be this bad, right? But I would rather have excellence in everything that I do because, like I said, we said this during lunch, we serve an excellent God. Therefore, we need to give him excellence in return. And so the host is giving them a tour. The host is checking in their kids, making sure that the kids are checked off. And the host is like, hey, if you have any other questions, I'll be waiting right here in this VIP or the visitor central, and come ask me. So now they visit service, maybe they attend, maybe now they're like, yeah, maybe I need some more information about what they're doing. They go back and visit. It's like, hey, just want to show you appreciation. Thank you so much for visiting us. Here's a gift from us to you. Now we're giving them a gift, whether it's a t-shirt or a coffee mug or whatever the case may be. And now we're valuing them. And here's where a lot of churches miss it. After the first visit, they're like, hope you come back next Sunday and forget about them.
Yeah. No follow-up, nothing.
No follow-up.
Nothing.
But here's, MIT came out with a research study a few years ago saying that more people will connect better with your brand on the 6th or 12th touch. So they may see you a couple of times, but if they see you around 6 times or 12 times or different campaigns that you're running, like, okay, maybe I need to see what they're all about. So now what I teach our churches is there's a 8 to 12 week follow-up program after that. Because now they love your church. So there's different stages. I'm sorry, I'm going really in depth.
No. We love this.
Okay. So our goal is to take people from seeing one of our content online. They're intrigued. They're like, okay, I see what you're doing. Now we want them to come inside our doors as a church. And then if they love what's happening inside our church, if they're like, hey, this seems pretty cool. Now we move them from intrigued to interested. Okay. Now the next goal is, okay, now that you're interested, I'm going to continue following up with you, answer any questions, equip you with some more resources to help you in your walk with God. And then we're going to move from interested to invested. Now they're serving on your staff or your volunteer team. Now they're giving their tithes and their offerings to your church. They're invested in the vision of your church.
So good.
And if your staff doesn't understand the vision, then there's going to be a lot of things going to fall apart. Like, this is not the same church that I saw online.
Right.
This is two completely different things. And so that's why I believe that vision is so important, that we communicate. The reason why we're doing Facebook ads or the reason why we're doing Google ads is not to just get a bigger attendance. It's to make disciples.
Yes.
And those disciples, word of mouth. Let's go back to marketing. Word of mouth is the most powerful form of marketing.
Yeah.
Guess what? A digital way of word of mouth is, since you are invested and you're in our next steps class, do you mind writing a review on Google, Yelp, and Facebook? Just copy and paste your review about what you think about our church.
Yeah.
Bro, now they're friends and family that are connected with them, saying, hey, I visited Metro for the first time. Here's my experience.
Yeah.
Boom, 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 boom. Now their friends and family are going to want to come visit. Now you're seeing exponential growth through an organic relationship that they found online.
Yeah. I want to say this, like, as you were talking, this reminds me of a story, and I'm not condoning this by any means. When I used to go trick-or-treating when I was younger, and you know, go to normal neighborhoods and stuff, and you would go trick-or-treating, and you only stay at the front door. Yeah. You don't go beyond that point, right? And you go for the treats, you go for the excitement, you only go for the good things there. Yeah. But I remember one time, because I live in my parents' neighborhoods filled with Indians, and I go to this specific person's house, and they see that I'm Indian too. They look like we look similar, and they're like, "Son, come inside, have some chaya, have some biscuits, eat with me, join me." And you guys know, being in the living room is a really intimate place, right? It's like only people that you feel close to.
You don't let anybody get in the living room.
You just don't let anyone get, right? Yeah. But most of the time, like you're saying with the strategy, it's not that social media is bad, but if your church can only get people to the front door and not beyond that point, you got to consider, is your members just trick-or-treat members? Woo! Right? Are they only coming for the treats? And for the...
Make that a tweet right there. We need to make that a tweet right there. Come on, that's
trick-or-treat members.
That's good, bro. That's so good.
Right? Yeah. So, and we have to rethink our strategies. Yeah. And I love how you said, hey, we also put just as much importance and excellence even to people who are going beyond just coming to the church. How do we get them even from coming to the church to being disciples of the church? Yeah. And that's exactly the goal. Yeah. That's the goal.
Yeah. According to what you just said, like about the vision part, I think that's critical and that's very crucial. And I would say most of the churches within most of the communities actually don't follow that. Yeah. There's no proper vision. There's no proper casting of a vision. One of the greatest vision casting moments was JFK's speech, where he said, by the end of this decade, we're going to put a man on the moon. That I believe is the book Vision Driven Leader by Michael Hyatt, who what actually wrote about this particular message. He said the way that JFK cast a vision on that Congress speech was that every American living in the U.S., taking from a janitor to a cab driver to the scientist at NASA, understood that this is my vision. This is our vision. Yeah. We need to put a man on the moon. Yeah. We are going into the world, into the uncharted space. We are going into space where nobody has stepped foot in. And that kind of casting has to happen in the church, where everybody, if someone is serving in the worship team, or somebody is just like serving in the kids' church, or somebody who's serving at the AV booth, everyone, or somebody just like who is just a regular coming member, understands that this is not the church vision, This is not my pastor's vision. This is not my founder's vision or my elder's vision. This is my vision.
Yes.
And when that my comes in, when that gets implanted, it gets implanted in your heart. You know, it's not in the brains. It comes in the heart. When it comes to the heart, then what is it? This is my vision. This is our vision. That from the churches or from the pastors or from whoever else's, it comes into mine and our. It becomes collective. And the moment that happens, that's when intentionality begins. And that's when I think that is one of the reasons why we need to do that. You know, where the moment that you get intentional with people, the moment that you get actually relational with them, it changes everything. Just like you said, we used to actually reminds me of a checkout experience. You know, when I'm buying something, you know, from Amazon, like, you know, you want to go through the best checkout experience. You know, you don't want a faulty UI or you don't want a buggy software. You want it to be smooth. And the way that the system that he said is so smooth, is so perfect that it gives you the best experience for a person who comes in. And for that best experience to happen, every individual, even a 2-year-old kid in the church, must understand that this is my vision, this is our vision, and that collectiveness of the vision is what's going to achieve things. And I think that is what's going to change the world. That's what is going to spread the gospel, where we become like the Great Commission. You know, that becomes our vision. Today, unfortunately, most people don't feel like that's our vision. Most people don't understand that the Great Commission is not just for pastors. The Great Commission is not just for churches. The Great Commission is not just for missionaries. No, the Great Commission is for everybody. You know, it says, go and preach the gospel, spread the gospel everywhere, teach them, baptize them, teach them the ways of the Father. And it's very clear. It's crystal clear. But unfortunately, we don't follow it. And I think when the Great Commission becomes our vision, our mission, I think the moment people understand that, bro, the moment that they understand, like a JFK moment speech, this is our vision, this is that, and that's up to the leaders too, the way they cast it. And when we do that, the moment we do that, bro, that's gonna blow up stuff. That's gonna blow up stuff in the kingdom. People are just gonna start coming into the churches imagine being intentional about the Great Commission in your workspaces, in your schools. Okay, let's say 8-year-old kid or 8th grade kid goes into school and invites his friend, you know. Imagine what happens in your workspaces, in your businesses. Imagine you're going for a business conference. It's like, hey man, why don't you come check out my church if you're in Dallas, Texas? You know, the moment that you say that, then it becomes different. You know, you're not recruiting for the church, you're recruiting for the kingdom. We're not church recruiters, we're kingdom recruiters. You know, our goal is the kingdom. Our end goal, at the end of the day, the only thing matters, the only thing that we can focus on, the only thing that matters is the kingdom of God.
Yeah, it's good.
I was thinking from an audience perspective,
right.
You know, some people might even ask this question, like, yeah, it's great to have vision, and I see all these churches doing all these big things, but has churches become a business now? And I guess the question I want to ask you, Steve, and Matthew, you can ask this too, is it bad that churches are businesses, or we think like businesses, or is church and business is business? What do you think? Let's get a little controversial.
He's looking at me. He's like, okay, do you want to go first, or should I go first?
Because I'm just thinking about all the conversations I have. Someone even told me, like, stop running church like a business. And I'm like,
I don't think that's a problem as long as you're running the Father's business.
Come on. Bro, that was mic drop. Don't draw the mic though. But
it's expensive mics.
Expensive mics.
I'm not trying to be funny,
mic
okay?
Bro, that was solid. That was solid.
I mean, honestly, why we have to be about our Father's business. Why is it that business and corporations are so much better at casting vision than the churches? People like to buy into Apple. Why? Because they bought into the vision of, if I buy an Apple iPhone or Apple this or that, not only am I going to look cool or whatever the case may be, but I love their ecosystem. They're bought into the vision of, oh my gosh, this is the best thing.
Yeah.
Now, are there other products that may be better? Absolutely. Yeah. But the fact that their marketing is enticing people to think that way.
Yeah.
I refuse to allow Apple or any other secular company to market better than the kingdom of God.
That's good.
Right? Ooh. We as believers, we as Christ followers, we need to understand that we have been given the greatest gift of all time, eternal life through Jesus Christ. How dare we become so selfish and say, you know what, I'm going to keep this gift for myself and not tell anybody else. I think the church has done a horrible job of showing lost people what it's like to really follow Jesus with everything that you have. A lot of lost people that I talk to, they hate going to church because they think that they have to act some kind of way, they have to dress some kind of way, rather than following what Jesus said, come as you are. I love you enough for you to come as you are, but I love you too much to leave you the way you are. And so a lot of times people think, I need to fix myself up before I go to church. And I think the church has done a horrible job of communicating that vision. And so there's a lot of principles that we can learn from the business world. I don't think business and church has to be polar opposites. I think there's a world where both of them can be married and live together in harmony. They don't have to be mutually exclusive, but there's things that we can learn from each other. And so I believe that there is ministry in marketplace.
Yes.
I really love what you said. You know, as long as you're doing the Father's business, it's fine. And I really love that. But also from my perspective, I would add on that the question is, should the church be inspired by the corporate world, or should the corporate world be inspired by the church? There's a big difference there, because every plan, every business plan, every marketing plan, if you trace it back, it has to come to the root of the Bible. Everything that's creative in this world, everything that you think, because here's what I believe: you can think, but always ideas come from God. Ideas always come from God. You know, you can think. I mean, definitely if you're smart enough, yes, I believe that. But the plan, the one who plans the idea inside you, that's God, nobody else. He gives you dreams, he gives you visions. And whether it's a corporate world or the church, but as long as it's planted from God, I think that's going to make the biggest difference in the world. But also at the same time, we see that the corporate world is advancing so much in marketing, where you see, I think about buying a phone, or I say about tell someone like I'm buying a phone. The next moment I see Facebook ads, Instagram ads regarding this phone. That's how fast. I'm talking about seconds or minutes.
And not just marketing, but just like logistics, strategies, everything, planning, organization, even like down to like things like we don't know how to, like staffing. Doing all these like little things in churches that we don't even assume is a thing that we need to know.
Right.
But now living in this day and age, these are things that the corporate world is advancing in.
Right.
Yeah.
And I feel like what the church needs to do is be intentional, is being raw. If someone comes in brokenhearted, instead of judging that person, I think the church should be Jesus to them. Every single person in that church should be Jesus to them. If someone comes in with a tattoo, are you gonna criticize him or talk about him, or are you gonna welcome him? Or what if somebody has a past? And the thing that what we must most understand is that at the end of the day, Jesus loves everyone, regardless of what you do. He died for each and every single individual. And I believe that the church should start understanding that, and the moment that we become Jesus to them, the moment that we become, like, let's say a broken man comes in, like he's broken, he's tested, he has been through a lot of stuff, and he comes in, he goes in the church. It's not easy for him to trust someone, but the moment you become Jesus to him, the moment that you become WWJD, what would Jesus do? The moment that you say, "Hey, let's grab a coffee." Okay, hey, let's talk. Is there anything I can help you? Is there anything I can pray? Something very simple as, "Can I pray for you?" Can actually change that person's heart. Can change a whole different lifestyle. I've heard stories of while I was growing up in Dubai, one of the churches, like one of my friends was pastoring. There was a guy who was about to get suicide, who was about to die. And he was about to end his life. One text: "How can I pray for you?" Change the trajectory of his life. We never know what intentionality can bring to the picture. And I think we should be intentional, raw, and relational. And if we have these three, I think the church is gonna explode in a way that it becomes a haven, like it's supposed to be. And that's when we become different from the business world, where the business world brings you in so that they can make profit out of you, but the church brings you in to give you Jesus.
It's good.
I think I see in the perspective, what if a church is really good at that though? What if they're really good at being intentional? What if they're really good at building disciples and shepherding, but they don't know how to budget? Or they don't know, what I'm saying? Like, I think it's twofold in the sense that should be your heart. Your heart should always be for people. And I think, but it's okay to step out and be like, hey, we're going to be a little bit more strategic, moving into this new year. We're going to budget more, we're going to, figure out how to do this and this, yeah. And Steve, if you want to talk more about that too. Yeah.
No, like what you said, especially about budgeting. I mean, whether you talk about finances or people or resources, God's called us to be good stewards of what he's given us, right? When you look at the parable of the talents, right? One person buried his talent and never invested it. The other person was able to multiply it. And so a lot of times we're like, oh, let's just let the Holy Spirit move. That's great. Let's let the Holy Spirit move. But let's make sure that we're not going bankrupt and we're not 5 months on our mortgage on the building that we have, right? There's no point in having to move the Holy Spirit if we're just going to have no place to worship in, right? There has to be a balance of both, I think.
Yes.
That's great.
Yes, that's good. I think this gave a lot of insight to people when it comes to like how to run their churches and what to do. Do you have any more questions in terms of this, Matthews?
No, I think I want to say like the budgeting part is very important, I mean, you have $1,000 in your account, you can't go buy 100,000 house.
Yeah.
You always have to budget according to what you need.
Absolutely.
And sometimes, but what's necessary? Like I always have this thing, want versus need.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so is it a want or is it a need? Okay, if it's a need, then I need to buy it. If it's a want, I can keep it for later.
Mm-hmm.
So what I do, this is something that one of my friends told me. He's actually good at money managing. He's from India, so he tells me, Matthews, you know what you should do if you feel like you want something, if you feel like I want that MacBook, I want that iPhone, just add it into your cart, wait for 7 days, and within that 7 days you still feel that want, go buy it. If you still don't feel it, leave it there. And I think that's just how we should differentiate. I think even on the basis of personal financial planning, or with church too, or with any organization, like even when we're doing Bellwethers, like we have zero money coming in, bro. Our input is zero. I'm telling you, and I have no shame in saying that because we're just completely trusting God, but we are actually making sure like, okay, what do we need?
Yeah.
Do we need like is there some things that we can rent?
Yeah.
Then yes, let's go for it. Is it necessary to buy? Is it an absolute necessity?
Mm-hmm.
Is it a stretch? Then we'll still make it,
Yeah.
I think that's how you should actually think about want versus need can actually help you manage your personal finances, church finances, your organizational finances, any of it.
It's good.
Yeah, so good. Yeah, I mean, just to move the conversation a little bit more, more talking about your pastoral ministry. And we want to talk a little bit about, before we close the segment, just a little bit about how you balance all of this, how you balance. And you talked about a little bit earlier about, with your family and all the things that you do. And specifically with balance, I want to talk a little bit more about having Sabbath days and taking rest, because we're really good at moving 100 miles per hour, but we're really bad at putting the foot on the brakes, know. So what would you encourage to those that are listening that have this desire to do great things for the Lord, but also sometimes maybe lack the discernment to be like, hey, maybe you need to slow down just a little bit?
Yeah. I saw a great tweet, and his name is Pastor Rich. Oh, I forgot his last name. I apologize.
Bill Carson?
No.
Okay.
No.
I was like, that was the topic.
Maybe we could pop up the tweet over my face as I'm talking about it. But he was talking about how Sabbath shows where your trust is. Because Sabbath forces you to trust God. If you're not working on your business for one day and you're not making cold calls or emailing clients or whatever, and you're truly resting in God, that's putting your trust in saying, God, I know that even on my off day, you're able to move mountains and do things in the background that I won't be able to do.
Yes.
And so obviously with God creating everything within 7 days and taking rest on the seventh day, even God is showing us that there is something to be valued in Sabbath. Because like I mentioned earlier, a lot of times if we're not careful, our work can be our idol, right? The things that we do, the things that we find our identity in is really wrapped up in idolism, right? And when we take a Sabbath, God is telling us, okay, well, who's more important in your life, me or your work, me or your other career or your side project or whatever the case may be. If you're Sabbath, then you're resting in my presence. Don't you know that I'm the God that created the whole universe? You don't think that I can make more happen in those 24 hours of rest while you rest? You rest and let me work. So when we're resting, God's going to work in the background. And so that's why I love, whenever I encourage people, when I preach, it's like when we go to sleep, we have to go to sleep without any anxiety or any stress about the future because our trust is fully in God.
Yes.
Lord, I will take rest knowing that you have everything in control.
Yes.
I will take rest knowing that the battle's already won. You already know how this is going to turn out. You already have the provision for my life. Very quickly, and we'll close off. When Abraham was taking Isaac up to the mountain to sacrifice him, right? God instructed him, I want you to sacrifice your son. And by the time he got to the top of the mountain, the angel of the Lord said, stop, don't kill him, turn around, there's a ram on the other side. Okay? I heard T.D. Jakes preach about this, and I love what he said. He said every time that Abraham took a step up with Isaac in obedience, the ram on the other side of the mountain was taking another step.
Yeah.
Wow.
The provision.
And so every time Abraham trusted God, saying, are you sure, God? You want me to sacrifice my only son? The ram is taking another step. And so same thing with that. I believe if we're trusting God in Sabbath, God's allowing things on the other side of the mountain to happen and work out. There's people that are talking about you that you don't even know about. There's people that are conversating about, man, we need to do some business with Matthews or with Ruben, or we need to do something collaborative stuff, and you don't even know about it. God's protecting you from it. God's saying, do you trust me? Can you rest in me while I work other things out on the other side of the mountain? And when it comes to that divine time, I'm going to show you, turn around. There's provision for your life.
That was so good.
That was so good.
Oh my goodness, man! And even just being able to commune with God in the midst of all that. I mean, we talked about that earlier, right? And that's what this life is about, right? I mean, we can get all these things accomplished in life, like do really great things, like this podcast, if God willing, has like 100,000 views, whatever it is. But in the midst of all this, it's understanding that I'd rather be with God in all the things that I do. I'd rather have God be with me in the things in every moment of my life. And that's honestly like what I've learned through my Sabbath and my rest days is like being really intentional about how I spend it now. Like what do I do that day? Turn off my phone. Don't answer any emails or any calls that are coming in, especially work related stuff. Even like we can find things that are hobbies and joys for us that we can find God in those moments. Like so I know some people, I have a friend who loves to go fishing. Yeah. It's not the most exciting thing for me. Sure. But he tells me that peaceful rest and that moment that he has that serene feeling of just the scenery, everything that's around him, he really feels God in those moments. Because sometimes in the busyness, we oftentimes miss God and what he's doing. But like to your point, like, man, God's providing. His provision is happening at the same time as we spend time with him and communion with him.
And also, Adi, I feel like mostly the creatives, they're the ones that are burnt out the most.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
And we all can relate how hard it is, like, and how maybe at the last minute we'll have graphic design things come up and then we run it out quick. Deadlines, especially, or any, I mean, not just creative, I would say every industry, like, there are last minute deadlines, especially, so, I mean, I work in software, so I see that. Yeah. But I think it's also important, like, as creators, that we need to make sure that the creator rested on the seventh day. Even if God, who created all of heaven, all of earth, all the plants, animals, man, everything in it, if he had to rest, how much more should we rest? Yeah. And I feel like that's something that I think rest is very underrated. I don't feel like rest is given, especially in the creative space, we don't give rest enough importance. We work out, we burn out to a point where we're like, okay, I'm done. But if you rest, that burnout won't happen. That working out that stretching out to the last end of yourself, that won't happen. And I think Pastor Zach Shorty, and I think it's him who said this, grace is what God has done for us on the cross, and rest is a response to that grace. And when you rest, you're responding to the grace what he has done for you.
Yeah.
When you rest, you're abiding in his grace.
Yeah.
You're abiding in him. Good. And that's why rest is so important. And even I'm guilty of it. I don't take rest as much as I need to. I mean, today I had only an hour and a half sleep. I'm coming and I'm talking about rest. I know I'm a hypocrite, but I still feel like rest and sleep are not the same thing, though. You know, rest is like where I can, even if I sleep for 2 hours, I can still rest. You know. And resting is like, it's not just not doing anything, but rest is in his presence. His presence is the place where we rest. And I think most of the time we confuse it. We take rest in a different way, like, okay, everything else, like just sleep or just do nothing or just go drive around. That's not rest. I think rest is always in his presence. And even if how much of a tired we are or burnt out or whatever happens, the moment we enter his presence, that's rest for us. That's where we don't have to do anything. We don't have to play the guitar or you just come by and in your closet, just get on your knees and say, Abba, I'm here. That's rest. That's rest right there.
Yeah. And there's a verse in the Bible that says that like God is in the trees, he's in the air, he's in everything that's around us. So if we don't take that time to appreciate those things, and especially as like a creative, I need to learn to be like, hey, there's so many colors out there. The vastness, right? That's my Photoshop. That's my canvas. Right? You know, just like being like, hey, God's in the middle of all that, right? God's in the midst of that. And to learn to appreciate that is something that I want to encourage all of our audience members that are listening now, right? Like, you know, this is why we set up this podcast for you guys, to be able to have conversations like this and to be able to use it as a practical tool for your own lives, because these are moments that we all learned, made mistakes, and learned that, hey, this is what God actually called us to do here on this earth. And I just want to say thank you to Pastor Steve, one of our really good friends, man. You always drop the best like information, the best like one-liners, everything, bro. like we have so much to learn from you, and you're such a gift to the community.
Thanks, man.
You're such a gift to everyone who is listening, and we're so honored to see what God is doing in your life moving forward. And quickly before we're about to end, how can we pray for you as we're continuing this podcast? How can our audience members pray for you in this season of your life?
Man, that's great. I would encourage everyone to pray for us, especially for me, just to make sure that I'm never too busy doing my own thing and not hearing the voice of God. Ooh. Because a lot of times we can be too busy doing ministry without being in ministry.
Amen.
Right? Amen. And so I just want to be always in the center of God's will, wherever that is, whatever that looks like.
That is so good, man. But also at this point, I want to thank you, for everything that you do, for all the things, all the truth bombs that you dropped today, and for your answer to the call. Like, you know, when God says like do it, thank you for being obedient. You know, because your obedience is inspiring a lot of us.
Yeah. Wow.
People younger than us, older than us. Your obedience is inspiring a lot of us. And I want to thank you for you're becoming a role model, like the way that you're doing it. And I really, to be honest, I'm really proud to call you my friend. We both are, and we're also proud to have you as like, you know, one of our advisors. Yeah. And you know, but when we were setting up our advice, I was like, you know, Ruben, let's put Steve John. There's no better person that I know.
Wow. That was an easy yes.
Yeah, that was it. I was like, he's definitely gonna say yes. Yeah. I was like, there's no way he'll say no to it. I was like, let's put him on the advisor.
Oh wow.
And we're glad, you know, we could do all of this together with you, not just this podcast, but also as we journey through all the things that we dream, you know. We're just glad, you know, you are on board with us, and you know, not just as an advisor, as a friend, as a mentor, as a guide, you know. And man, we're really thankful for you, and it's not flattering. We mean it from the bottom of our hearts.
Yeah, honored to be a part of whatever you guys do. I know that this is a God dream for both of you guys, what God's putting in your hearts. Yeah. And if there's any small part that I could play, whether it's, you know, holding the water bottles to make sure y'all are well hydrated, or whatever the case may be, I would love to play a small part in what God's doing in your lives and through this. And so I'm excited about this project and where it's going, and all the future endeavors. Is going to be the best is yet to come. That's what I always say. The best 100%. Is yet to come.
Hey, do us a favor. Plug some of your Instagram, your handle, maybe even talk about what's coming up with the conference and stuff, and any things that are coming up. And then
this should be aired around March. So, you talk about Youth Pastor Conference and give it all the details as much as you can. And it's free, right?
Plug whatever's coming up.
Okay, cool. Yeah, you can follow me on Instagram, Steve John, or TikTok. All my handles, I'm sure they'll drop it down below. But also with Youth Pastor Co. or Youth Pastor Conference, it goes beyond just being a youth pastor. If you're not a youth pastor, but you're a leader or you love to minister at church, this conference is going to be for you. We are working on an incredible lineup, so hopefully by the time you see this, we'll be able to release it. And I'm excited to see where God has taken this. Just a quick reminder. 5 years ago, I started this conference in my spare bedroom. And then this year, God's given us the opportunity to partner with Church of the Highlands at Highlands College, do a hybrid approach. And like I said, the best is yet to come because I'm living it. And And so if you want more information about how I can work with your church, if you're interested in that consulting thing, I would love to connect with you. You can find me on Facebook as well, or just check out churchgrowthcentral.com.
Yep, all the links will be in the bio. And once again, thank you, Pastor Steve.
Thank you.
And thank you for everyone who's listening. Thank you for being a part of this episode. So stay tuned until we drop some more. We come in with a new guest and we drop some new truth bombs. So take care. We'll see you later.
See you guys.